in that kind of terrible situation and needed one another to get through it and come out the other end. And that's what makes Raahgir such a powerful film, I think. It really talks about the humanity and the way that people should and need to come together to fight these very common ills that we all face. It's not just, the whole world has faced COVID, and we can only defeat it together.
Thank you. Perhaps I'll come back to you again. Let us move on to our next speaker, Professor Dr. Sanjoy Mukhopadhyay. Quite fortunately, with the generosity of Mr. Amit Agarwal, Sanjoy, you managed to watch this film. So if you kindly share your primary experience of watching this wonderful film.
Unmute.
If you unmute yourself, Sanjoy, if you could unmute yourself.
Am I audible?
Yes.
You are indeed.
Oh, first, to begin with, it's a privilege to have the experience of looking at Raahgir. For me, I'm looking at Goutam after long years. In 2013, I saw his film Shunno Anko, which perhaps means empty figures, in an empty auditorium in Nandan, Kolkata. Do you remember that, Goutam? And after Shunno Anko, this is a rare experience for me, particularly as an Indian, as a Bengali, as a person from Bengal, as a friend of Goutam Ghose. It's a refreshing thing because I'm looking at him that despite globalization and neoliberal attitude on the part of Indian filmmakers, despite the glossy and synthetic platforms that is being regularly offered by the Indian filmmakers, Goutam has gone back to his essence, to his core, to his golden hungry autumn days. I'm really indebted to a person who made Boatman on the river Padma, who made Par across the river, who made Antarjali Jatra, and who made Shunno Anko. This is a kind of encounter with poverty. The film, this is not a question of poverty alone. This is a question of exploring a kind of emptiness that has been reigning in India. It's a kind of revoking the aesthetics of hunger, things like that, which was there in the 1970s, a kind of imperfect cinema and a kind of third cinema which speaks more of a national condition than of the media, than of the art medium itself. It is not confined. It is not limited within the domain. It is not that claustrophobic. It opens out. And what we see when Goutam's protagonist says that not Salman Khan, you must remember Birsa. I understand. This is the voice to which third world speaks. The third world tried to speak like that at least 50 years ago. And now, one of the rare personalities from our world who has not forgotten his vouch is Goutam, our friend. I acknowledge his contribution that Birsa Munda, a tribal hero, should be our icon and not Salman Khan, the glossy, plastic presence in on the Bollywood screen. And when he speaks of a flute, I'm reminded both of Satyajit Ray, the centenary. He used flute in Pather Pachali, in Aparajito, and in Apu Shankar, the family of Apu, flute being the least expensive Indian musical instrument. He was in the habit of using flute while depicting rural environment and perhaps abject poverty in a city environment. And Goutam too took up the cause of flute, and his location, Netarhat, I must say, it's a good old reminder to the Apu Samshar days. Am I not right, Gautam? In Apu Samshar, Satyajit Ray used this location. And perhaps we can also remember the experiences of Ajantrik when Ritik Ghatak took up the cause of the tribals. And he, like a true courageous, lonely, solitary figure in Indian cinema, is taking up the cause of the wayfarers. They are nowhere. They belong to nowhere. Practically, the ruling class erased them out. And I'm really grateful that Gautam could invent them from nothingness. They returned to the Indian scene. And if you look at the photography of the film, Gautam himself being a very good photographer, he belongs to the genre of that cinema legacy where the director practically acted as a cinematographer, like say Orson Welles in Citizen Kane, say Ajay Kaur in Bangla cinema, Gautam would remember. Like this low light photography, which is typical of him, which is signature of him, early morning photography and extreme low light photography during nights or late evenings is splendid. Only for the photography you can see the film. Though I feel a bit shaken because this film is not made for OTT platform or like this computer screen, because you have so much long takes subject to camera distances and made deliberately longer. And if you look at it, these long shots and long takes cannot be interpreted, cannot be justified properly if you present them on the TV screen or on the OTT platform. You require a real auditorium, a real location to appreciate that. I must say that Gautam, instead of presenting a chocolate rack beauty, he went inside the essence of Indian civilization and wanted to prove to us that the subalterns and the poor has a right to live. They can share their grief and pleasure both together. And out of silence, they can scream. And this screaming is very important for our civilization. This is an artist's responsibility to invent this screaming when everything has been muted. Thank you, Gautam. This was a real experience for me. I'm really proud that you are my friend and you acted like this. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Sanjay, for your insightful input. Those who have joined now, let me introduce actually our today's panel. For just a bit of technical glitch, we were delayed to come to live. So the director of Raahgir, one of the leading interpreters of Indian cinema at this moment, Sri Goutam Ghose, is part of this panel today. Dr. Pushpinder Choudhury, the founder of UK Asian Film Festival, is part of the panel. Sailesh Ram, the founder of AsianCultureVulture.com, and Amit Agarwal is Amit Agarwal, the part of the producer of the film, is part of today's panel. So let us come back to, before I move on to Amit Agarwal, perhaps let us have a bit of initial input from Gautam. Perhaps if you kindly begin with what made you make this film. I know that this film was made before COVID, but especially at the time of COVID, to me, it was so relevant to connect the story of humanity with the vacuum of whole mankind that COVID has thrown us into. So if you kindly share, why did you choose this very story by Prafulla Rai, and what stimulated you to make this film?
Oh, well, before I explain the reasons of making this film, I'm really thankful to Pushpinder ji for putting this film on a big screen at BFI Theatre, one of my favorite theatre. I've been there several times. I'm really, really thankful to you uh, to give the audience a big screen experience in your UK Asian Film Festival. Thank you very much. Well, with the turn of the century, the beginning of the new millennium, I remember I was hearing a lecture by Dalai Lama that what would be the duties of human race in this new millennium? Because the new millennium is becoming violent, becoming inhuman, and becoming extremely greedy. Well, there are, of course, the effects of neoliberal economy. It had its own advantages and disadvantages too. And gradually, I've seen that, with the beginning of the millennium, there were again many wars, civil wars, proxy wars, violence everywhere. And in our own society, people are becoming so inhuman. I was reading in newspapers that children, they kill their parents because of property. A neighbor in a multi-storied complex didn't care for an old couple and they died without care. Nobody came out from the next door. So these are the news, daily news in newspapers, in television, and of course in our lives. So in 2018, 19, I thought, almost 20 years have gone by since we started this new millennium. Let me speak about humanity. Let me show common man and their responsibility, their empathy, which is very, very important because I've traveled in many places in different parts of the world, and also in my country, I travel in the interior places where simple people, the tribals, they live, they do a lot of hard work for earning their living. But always I found them so hospitable, so kind. Still, they live very close to nature, and they're really humane. That's why I made the film. But I think, unfortunately, we couldn't release the film because of the COVID. It went to some important festivals, and of course, in London, the screening was excellent. Kaysar called me up, I think from the Bank of Thames. Gautam da, we have just finished seen the film, so they were so excited. I remember.
Exactly.
Well, what has happened? This COVID is a great reminder that we cannot live without empathy. That's why the film is even more relevant now. That look, these common people, how they saved the life of an old couple, and we didn't care. And now during the COVID, we need empathy. We need helping hands. So that's why I think, film is really touching the hearts of the audience. Whoever has seen the film, the experienced critics and common man and common audience, they loved it. And because of not only loved the film, they found, again, as Sailesh ji said, about this cinematic space, where like specks, these two characters, they move to the direction of earning money to reach the city. And, and we see in that huge space an incredible drama, human drama of whether they will help the couple or not, or otherwise they might lose their job. So this tension, this contradiction happens in a huge space. That space, it's a typical Deccan plateau. It has many ups and downs. So I thought this could be a fantastic location for this really great human drama. And this is that is the reason, you know, I made that film, and now I think the film is truly important indeed because of the situation all over the world, more or less same, yeah, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Gautam. There's just one more thing that I'd like to add. Did you get any kind of feedback? Because obviously this film was shown in Barsan Festival in India. Yeah. So, I mean, like Satyajit received many feedback whether this film, whether Pothe Pachali was the real documentation of real life. Because your film was so close to neo-realist film. I wouldn't say neo-realistic. This is, you depicted Indian reality. Perhaps critics may find quite relevant, I mean, quite close to Italian neo-realist film, De Sica's, Visconti's film. But your own reality, where you depicted your own reality, especially the radio, well, Dharma was listening, perhaps, or perhaps the detail you were focusing into, while you depicted a house where the children of Natuni and Dharma were watching film. It was so close to the harsh reality of those lives. So did you get any kind of feedback from perhaps Western audiences, quite similarly what Satyajit received, that whether this film was real documentation of real life? Because to me, even I mean, the way you de-glamorize the characters, Tillotama and Adil, I felt like sort of this, I mean, if I wouldn't know them, I felt like these people actually lived there. You picked them up from the real landscape of that area.
First of all, as Pushpinder ji said, that the theme of the festival was Ray of Hope. I would say that this film is also a great homage to Ray, because, you know, all through his life, Ray has given importance to humanity, because, you know, his films were really human, and he tried to capture Indian reality, but the presentation was absolutely international. And that's exactly what we have been following. We have learned from Ray, from Ritik Ghatak and Mridal Sen and many other Indian filmmakers, and so many great filmmakers all over the world, that you be rooted but present it with a style. That is very, very important. And I think, you know, it's not a question of de-glamorizing. It's a question that how faithful is your character? How credible is your character? That is a good performance. And I am sure that my protagonists, all of them, you know, Tillotama, Adil, Neeraj Kavi, all of them, they try to be credible. And, you know, the way I prepared them, that, you know, people should feel that they belong to the land, belong to that particular territory. Their body language, their accent, their dialect, throwing of dialect, everything. I was very careful. They too as well were very, very, very careful, and I'm really happy. And because another thing is very, very important, that, you know, the film is nothing to do with poverty. Poverty is there. More than 60, 70, almost 65% people, they live under poverty line. What to do? That's the reality. And it's a very complex country, India. It's not homogeneous at all. It is highly heterogeneous country, and you find a huge population they live, we call them underprivileged. Of course, they are underprivileged. They didn't have that amenities. They didn't have that kind of lifestyle. But some of them are very happy. Only problem, I would say that originally, especially the tribal areas, they had their indigenous economy that had been broken by the market economy. It got related with market. So that's how, then they're suffering because, the prices of the market is now the prices for the tribals too, who lives in the remote areas. But, it's not poverty. I think it's a greatness. Poverty, you have made me great. It's a great line from Tagore, poverty, you have made me great. It's a internal, your mind is rich. And I remember meeting these people. They were rich in mind. They had incredible vocabulary about nature. If you go to the lectures in Sikkim and other areas, you will find they have fantastic vocabulary of each and every element of nature in their own language. So they're really rooted, and I'm very happy that the film was very timely in a way that when people are looking for freshness, looking for liberation. In fact, during the COVID, during the lockdown, or during the so-called neo-normal situation, I drove down to a hilly area to take a fresh breath, to fresh oxygen. And there I found people, they didn't know anything about COVID. They said, look, in our areas, hardly it exists. So I think, we are all looking for nature. We are all looking for freshness, a new world. Perhaps, COVID has really taught us that human empathy and love for your neighbors, that eternal word is so true. And today's reality, I guess.
Thank you, Gautam. I'll come back to you again. We must have so many things to share, actually, after watching this film. And indeed, this is not a film about just division of poverty. This is quite a subtle political film as well.
And it's also about endurance.
Exactly, the Sanjoyda perhaps endurance as well, the story of endurance. And Sanjoyda just indicated this. You made a prologue, a beautiful prologue. And after this prologue, you indicated what is the film about by, when Dharma said that Birsa is the real hero, not Sanjoy, not forgot the hero, the cinema hero. Sometimes perhaps he was talking about a film hero, and then Birsa was indicating that Birsa is the real hero. And in some of your narrative is just not about, well, let us come back to those discussion afterwards perhaps, but can I have a bit of input from the producer of this film, Amit Agarwal? If you kindly share, perhaps you read this story. I managed to watch your recorded interview with Mukulika in BFI. So perhaps did you read the story first, and then that made you decide that you would go ahead with this film for you to produce? And if you kindly share your experience while the film was made. You are on mute at this moment, if you can't unmute.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Firstly, I would like to say that, in each discussion and in each feedback, whatever I am getting from whoever is watching the film, I am myself learning new things about the film. So Gautam da, has made this film in so many layers, and there are so many messages to learn from. And of course, Raahgir is so relevant today. Ever since we thought of making this film, and throughout his journey of production and festivals, I mean, as days are passing, its relevance is becoming stronger. Raahgir, as a film, is not supposed to be an entertainer, but it does it in a very unique way, along with its main purpose, a plot which is about humanity. It makes us realize how unique and strong we all are as a human being. It makes us realize the purpose of our existence. Humanity is in extreme crisis today. Why? Because we ourselves don't know the purpose of our existence. And everyone is just running after power, after money, and how to maximize it. People are doing whatever they can do, even if it is a crime, just to earn power and quick money, which in fact is of no use at the end. And when Gautam narrated this story to me, my purpose of doing this film was the subject, which was based on humanity. As per the situation, Raahgir portrays, as per the present situation, Raahgir portrays is just opposite. It's about sacrificing your own earning. It's about endangering your own life, your family's life, your means of survival to help others. It's like a journey of survival, a journey of sacrifice, companionship, humanity, and altogether a journey of life. A big salute to Gautam, my dearest director, for making this film for me, for the audience, which give us so many messages in different layers and yet controlling the purpose of the film. I really liked the subject and of course wanted to work with Gautam since many years, and that made me do this film. Thank you.
And Amit is a wonderful producer because he was not a financier, but he was always by my side. So any problem, Gautam, I will no, it's challenge. Let's go. We have to shoot. We have to catch the rain. And he was so sweet and nice, and used to bring some beautiful sweets and candies during our shooting to make us happy, because it was a really hard work and very hard labor. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
It was, thank you, Gautam. It was, very short time we got to plan to schedule the film, and because he wanted to shoot in monsoons, but I'm happy that with efforts of everyone, we were able to make it.
So thank you, Mr. Amit Agarwal. Let us have another round actually. So if we kindly info any more on this, let us start from Pushpinder Choudhury again. If you'd like to add anything, if you unmute yourself again, yeah.
The only thing I would like to add is that it's a universal story. So it travels through different, can translate or understandable from any country, especially now when we see how important that human touch is, that human understanding is. And do we really in this world actually invest in relationships? Because for me, life is all about relationships. You nurture it, it's a journey, you learn, you move forward. So that's how this film speaks to me. That is, as you know, other speakers were saying, it's not about poverty. It's about how you relate to people. And I think we forget in our day-to-day life that to nurture the relationship is important. And when I get all these WhatsApp messages about be happy, think positive, but if you don't have purpose in life, how you can be happy is to have a purpose in life. And purpose comes from within, what you understand at human level of how you relate to people. And for me, this was just so strong in this film. And that's why it actually needs to be watched and then discussed so that people get more out of the layers that this film actually presents. And as I said, not just to Asians, not just to Indians, it speaks to all the communities because it is about humanity and relationships.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pushpinder Choudhury. Sailesh, if you'd like to, unmute yourself, please.
Yes, I mean, I'd like to add to what Pushpinder Ji was saying about, especially the relationship between the Adil Hussain character and the Tillotama, the friendship that they develop, the richness of the human connection, even in that short space of time, and the way that it's established is also brilliantly done. I think that first encounter where she's very suspicious, obviously there's that incident right at the beginning, which is very shocking and very unsettling. And she kind of puts that behind her. I mean, she's a strong woman in many ways and very commendable for that. And she's the one who's holding the family together. We know that. We've seen that from the home life and her husband being disabled and paralyzed and not being able to earn a living. And she's looking after the children as well. And she's the one who's having to provide. And she's walking alone, and then she encounters the Adil Hussain character, Lakwa, who again is there's a lot of humor in this as well. You kind of sometimes miss that, the lovely comic touches that you put in there, so, because it speaks to our humanity, that kind of the humor, that even though they have a very serious purpose in the sense that they need money to go and buy food for their family, and for Lakwa, for himself, you know, although he has some money and he obviously just wants to keep himself going. And the whole approach is very, it's kind of, they find strength in each other, and that also is very powerful. And that's what carries them through, not just the film, but the hardship they face. And you know, the first encounter when they have with the cart and the guy who's stuck in the mud and he needs their help. And at the beginning, they're a little bit, you know, they're thinking, we need to get to the town. We haven't got much time. And the guy is pleading with them, and they relent. And then they find, as Pushpinder said, that purpose, you know, there is a higher purpose. They could just go off and forget the two old people in the back of the car who obviously need medical attention, and just go and get the work they need, get the money, and forget about it. But they don't. They realize that they need to help. They can help, and they do help, and at some cost to themselves as well, because then of course it gets late and they can't find any work at that time of night when they get to the town. But so it really is very powerful on all these different levels. The human connection and that the friendship they establish, and it's very touching that the two people who, and she really does care for him, and he cares for her as well. And it's very powerful the way they come together, and together they are powerful. I mean, on their own they're a little bit, you know, they're little kind of atoms inspiring the way they're doing their own thing, but together also. And that again speaks to our humanity, that if we come together, we can overcome some very serious challenges.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. Let us come back to Sanjoy, Professor Sanjoy Mukhopadhyay. If you'd like to add anything, Sanjoy, there. No, please unmute, yes.
Am I audible?
You are audible, but your video is off. So if you kindly turn your video on. Yes, your video is on now.
My submission is simple. As I have told you, as I have submitted, that it's not a film about poverty, but it goes through poverty. The journey began from poverty. We have been walking to the streets of civilization for about 5,000 years. Our journey started from Manjadara and Harappa, perhaps. Even before that, from Bimpet, 10,000 BC, the Indian civilization has been walking along the roads. And Goutam Ghose, the filmmaker, is showing just that. The film is important because it teaches us the importance of touch. When in our COVID days, we have been prohibited from touching each other, the film, quite simply, without much ado, touches our soul. And there you are. Whenever a huge film went to Europe from Asia, say in 1950, when Rashomon reached Italy, when Pather Pachali reached France, or when, say, Abbas Kiarostami's Cherry Tree reached elsewhere, every film talks about a simple, straight truth that you may have problems. And there are problems, definitely there are problems. But that does not mean that we have no colors, we have no ambitions. We can help each other. That's a great Buddhist lesson. Gautam was speaking of Dalai Lama. And this is Buddha's teaching to the whole of world: patience and a power to endure, the capability of endurance. These are most important things. And what I appreciated in the film is the simplicity of approach. There's no jargon about camera. He showed so many things. And it's a typically pro-cinematic approach. I again emphasize that it is our, I regret the absence of cinema auditorium experiences. This is perfectly suited for that, the long shots and the other things. But even if you miss that, you get the message. You know you are in a remote corner. You are in a remote third world. The TV gives you the outward world explanations. Sometimes there are bitter experiences. People throw out bottles of beer on the street. You can be injured. But despite everything, despite death, despite failures, life moves on. And that is the ultimate message. What he was telling, that in Satyajit Ray, ultimately what do you get? This film, in some use of sound, reminds me of Sadgati, the first telefilm of India made by Satyajit Ray, the sound effects. The same thing, the sound effects, if you go to Rutti Ghatok, Ajantrik, the same tribal dances and a celebration of life, all will remind you that the poverty and the abject deprivation of existence is not the whole thing. There are more, there are more. Probe deeper and you will find life with all its color and fabric. And Gautam could touch that point. This is an achievement. I simply salute his success.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanjay Da. Amit Agarwal ji, if you'd like to add anything.
I would like to say that I've been into mainstream cinema, mainstream films. I've backed MS Dhoni, films like Simran. But making this film has given me immense satisfaction. And what I feel that this film is immortal and will exist forever. So whether we exist or not, the film will always exist, and people will learn, continue learning out of this film. I once again thanks Gautam Da for directing this film for me, and the collaboration with him was really superb. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Amit Agarwal. Before I move on to Gautam Da, let me also ask you, perhaps, I'm not sure whether you are also, this is not about this film, but looks like that whether you are campaigning for indigenous people, because you have some other films made on indigenous people as well. And what makes me amazed about this film, and then you can remember, I ran you from the bank of the River Thames just after watching this film. It amazes me in many ways. First of all, the prologue you covered. I mean, you prologued, you introduced. That is, you gave an impression this is a universal film. So at top, you covered the whole area in a top angle shot. And perhaps you are trying to tell about this is a story of universal humanity. This is the story of the whole landscape, almost like we see in Russian fiction, when they talk about perhaps two human beings or three human beings, three characters. But the description of this steppe, a wide farmland, so symbolically input or complement the characters. We see this in Sholokov, Turgenev, in many Russian fictions. That is exactly what was happening in your film. You were more into landscapes sometimes instead of characters. And so intelligently you depicted, for example, when they're approaching the town perhaps, all of a sudden we saw the train was going by the landscape. So you were establishing the scene so indirectly and but so subtly and implicitly. And then again, this is a story of sacrifice. They need money and they need to go to work, but they were stuck just to help humanity. The car driver who symbolizes also a greater humanity than obviously Nithuni and Lakhpati. And at the end of the film, I was almost speechless. Speechless because although they went, uh, uh, both of them went in two different directions, but the bonding you made a straight direction where not just Nithuni, not just Lakhpati, where all of us were connected. And all of us were perhaps in the similar journey. We saw ourselves. You connected everyone, all of our audiences in the same direction, although they're going two different directions. But those two different directions made a common direction, and that direction is humanity. And I felt like the whole world film communities need to watch this with profound contemplation. And I'm sure it will reach that attention from world community. And I'm sure this is perhaps being screened in many other festivals. And congratulations that it was awarded as the best film. And it is undoubtedly a quite easy selection, quite easy choice for the jury board of UK Asian Film Festival. As an audience, I can say I was amazed by watching every frame, and every frame establishes you, first of all, your integrity, and then your knack for great cinema. And congratulations to the costume designer. So beautifully done. Nilanjana, they did the costume design, and the cinematography was just amazing. Your son perhaps was the cinematographer as well, and you were so meticulous in terms of depicting every character. The sweating in the armpit of Tillotama Nithuni while she was carrying wood on her head. So, I mean, quite subtly, you were looking at the characters and establishing the characters so beautifully. So let us perhaps ask you whether this is not about this film, but because I watched most of your films, are you somehow campaigning for indigenous people? Because you end up with, after this film, you end up with an exuberant impression towards humanity and towards these indigenous people as well, although you subtly depicted that political thread line of the story. Over to
Well,
you.
thanks for your compliments, and thank you, Shailesh ji and Pushpinder ji, for all the compliments. But of course, but my instrument of campaign is my camera, my cinema, because that's the way that's the way I'm an activist of cinema, where I can campaign for people I like, the situation I like. And also I dream for a better world. What the hell is going on all over, in for many, many years now in Afghanistan and everywhere. It was in Iraq and in our country too. So many inhuman things. I would like to campaign till the last breath of my life for justice, for a better life, for tolerance. And if you read great religion, you can learn that there is a strong element of tolerance. If you and also that everywhere you have to help the poor, you have to help the needy. It's there in Christianity, in Sikhism, in Islam, in Hinduism, in every religion. It's there. And I think it's very important that our inner voice should say that, get away with negative emotion and live with positive emotion. That's exactly my word. And people who are fighting for justice, I support them. I love them. I adore them. And thank you so much for this beautiful interactions with wonderful people, very sensible people. That exactly is really missing in today's world. People are becoming so sensitive, as Pushpinder ji said, that a relationship, you get so many messages, but what you ask yourself what you have done. That's very, very important. And during this terrible pandemic time, we realize more that interdependence is most important. Because it's natural. Each and every atom is interdependent. So our lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Goutam. Anybody would like to add anything before we end?
I think we should be thanking Goutam sir and Amit for making such a wonderful film and a real work of art. And we are the ones who are indebted to you both for making it. And seeing a different reality, which I think is very important in this time. You know, wherever, as you say, people are often chasing things, material things and power, and they can't see the simpleness of life, which is about human connection. The Pushpinder said, the friendships and human relationships, which are really important. And that's what life is. It's not about what position you've got to in, you know, and how much money, how big your house is, or things like that. It's just about people and making connection and making the best of what you have, and without necessarily chasing for things and desiring bigger and bigger things, really. That and that is represented in the simplicity of the characters. They are eking out an existence, but at the same time, it is rich because of the connections they've made, and the help that they've given the two people is immeasurable, in the sense of getting them to the hospital in time. Hope, you know, it's left a little bit unsaid, but I think we can look at that positively, in the sense that they, as the doctor said, it's good you brought them now. I mean, a little bit later and they wouldn't have made it. So I think all those things are really powerful and very simply done. I mean, the story is very simple. It's two people trying to find work, make enough money to feed their family. But within that, there's so much. It is like a road movie, but it's a very deep and profound road movie, and it's a very powerful destination that we reach at the end. If it is even a destination, it's a kind of remembering of what is important about life, I think.
Gautam, whether the actual story of Prafulla Rai end where you concluded the film?
Well, you know, I read the story many years back. Suddenly it reminds me, and then, you know, I started writing a treatment that I thought, you know, it's the basic story. Of course, you know, in film, you know, you take a basic story, then you develop, you create a cinema out of it. You pick up the cinematic elements from a story or from a novel, whatever. And then I consulted my co-script writer. Unfortunately, he had passed away last December, Jagannath Guha. And he also was very excited to read the treatment. And when I told Prafulla Rai, and he was so excited that you are making a film from that story. So I think he was very, very happy, but because he said that the story was written many years back.
But did the actual story end there? Did the actual story end there where you ended your film? Actual story end there?
It was a little different, but, you know, of course, more or less, you know, the basic story was adapted from the literary work.
Many thanks, many thanks, Gautam. Many thanks to Ishan Ghosh for beautiful cinematography. Many thanks to Niranjana Ghosh for wonderful costume designing, and acting is just so much close to the reality. People may think this is the real documentation of real life. Many thanks to all actors and most definitely the whole team. Amitji, many thanks for giving us opportunity to watch this again. Thank you very much, Sanjoy.
In fact, I would like to say one thing.
I'll bring another film, maybe next year.
Give a shout out for that.
We were actually, Gautam, then we were planning to, you know, make a Bengali film. But when he narrated this story to me, and we made a quick decision to, you know, make this film, because the subject was, you know, on humanity. And we thought that we should make this first. So it was a very quick decision. And see where here we are. Now we are trying our best, you know, to release the film. And I am sure with support of everyone, we'll be able to showcase the film to people all around the world. And thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Thank
Pushpinder ji,
Thank you.
for selecting the film in your UK AFF as opening film. Thank you, Shailesh ji. Thank you, Sanjay sir. And thank you, Ahmed ji. Thank you very much for this wonderful session.
Thank you.
Many thanks, Amit ji again. But this is, in my experience, Gautam da, this is one of your immortal creation. I am personally, I was personally amazed.
It is immortal. It is
Yeah.
immortal.
And like Amit ji mentioned, we will die, but this story of humanity will last years after years. And I'm sure the whole the community of film, the world community of film, will watch this and will recognize this again, like we have done it in BFI. And all the best with this film. I'm sure it will reach every corner of the world soon. If perhaps those who are watching this discussion, we all have the responsibility perhaps to preach this beautiful film whatever we can, so that we can connect the audiences from each corners of the world. Many thanks, Sanjay da, for your very insightful input. Many
Thank
thanks for
you.
your time again. Gautam da, see you soon again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Salute.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you.
Congratulations again.
Take care.
Pushpinder ji, many
Thank
thanks.
Saudha.
Great.
Thank
Thank you.